Queen and Carson Quapple will lead us to the green flag. The Cars Tour 125, presented by Napa Auto Parts and Cheney Enterprises, is green. It's going to be a tussle here for the race lead. It was Brendan Queen who just edged out Carson Quapple there at the stripe to complete lap number 1, but they are side by side. Top 3 rows as Quapple may try to make the move by, and contact made for the race lead. Carson Quapple will have it at the stripe that time, and with that, Carson Quapple becomes the first driver in series history to lead a lap in each of the first 7 races.
Coming into the night, he was only 30 laps shy of his full total in 2022, and he's going to add to the slate as he comes to the line to cement the lead off on the outside lane of turn number 4. What a battle early in the going between some of the top contenders in the championship, and Quapple goes to the point.
Bobby McCarty, a car that was so strong here a week ago and I think is going to be a contender. You just feel like all the pieces are starting to fall into place for this RNS Race Cars team as Bobby McCarty now finds himself back up into the top 5. The battle up front is not quite over, though, as Quapple enjoying the clean air, which is something we may talk about here a little bit with how fast these cars are going around this racetrack. Quapple leading Queen, then Caden Honeycutt in 3rd, and how about give a nod to Chad McCumbee in the season that he has put together, quietly running in the 4th spot as he's under assault from McCarty, and Queen looked to take the peak down into turn number 1 on Carson Quapple.
We said these drivers were going to be going on full attack mode from the drop of the green flag. I think they've proven it so far. Just 5, now 6 laps into this race. Oh, Minnie Tyrell nearly caught the back fender of Landon Pendleton's car as they came out of 4. That was close.
Indeed it was, and Minnie Tyrell was out here a couple of weeks ago, the Dickie Boswell Memorial after North Wilkesboro. His alternator went bad, but was running up in the top 3 of that race. Meanwhile, back up front, 117 laps to go, and we are once again side by side for the race lead. Carson Quapple on the top side, and Queen going to go on by. Quapple says you can have that for now.
All the conversations about it being hard to pass here, throw that out the window. 2 lead changes already as we get this race underway, and Queen is now back to the point. These have been 2 of the best cars all season long as we inch closer to the halfway point in the season, and they are putting on a slugfest at the front of the pack. And here's a former winner alongside of that of Mike Looney. Down to the inside is that of Jonathan Finley. That's an Alpha Prime Racing late model stock car. They got the week off on the Xfinity slate. They decided to put the late model stock together, and here comes Finley charging up the running order.
And they started to go through the motions a couple of weeks ago. Finley came out to East Speedway, unfortunately wasn't able to finish that race because of a mechanical failure. But good to see him out here with Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour. We talked about that battle as here comes a couple of Virginia natives that'll go side by side, and 2 drivers that are awfully familiar with this racetrack in Tyrell and Pembleton. And by the way, it's a trio of those from the Commonwealth as Connor Hall is in the mix as well in that new looking white, silver, and black car. It's a good look there for that 77.
Both of the Chad Bryant Racing cars adorning a new look here tonight, fresh off of the win at Langley for that of Connor Hall. However, not the qualifying run that we would have imagined. Hall is trying to work his way further forward. He's a 3rd car in line. Speaking of new colors, 2nd race for Brandon Pearson, the 4th car in line for that entry for Lee Pulliam Performance. While his teammate leads at the front of the pack, Pierce is running in the 9th spot, continuing to try to work his way further forward as it appears as though Pembleton may be holding this group up a little bit here as Hall looks to the bottom.
That's the 2nd straight lap. Hall has shown the nose down to the bottom of turn number 3. He gets rejected by Minnie Tyrell. Now 5 cars lined up behind the Zero machine of Pembleton. We're kind of seeing what we saw in some of the local competitions, kind of clusters and packs of cars lined up about 5 or 6 rows deep as Tyrell sideways off the corner. May have gotten a shot from Connor Hall, but they keep it together. Now Hall looking to the bottom of the number 81.
Hall not wasting any time trying to work his way further forward. He's to the inside of Tyrell. Look at that car kick out under braking as he tries to bury it down to the inside. A slide by the 77 off the corner, and we're side by side as they go into turn number 1. Connor Hall trying to steer that car with the throttle on the exit of the corner, and he will pick up the spot from Tyrell to move to 7th, while Bobby McCarty muscles his way.
Oh no, Caden Honeycutt is waving out the window, and he may have a flat tire. I think that may be the call from that number 10 Mike Darn Racing Machine, and yes, he is letting the field know after a battle there with Bobby McCarty. a problem for Caden Honeycutt as he will try to bring it down to the pits. Again, we mentioned it in the local competition, and he stops on the track. He gets a 1-lap penalty. And indeed, the caution flag, the volt battery caution, is out for Caden Honeycutt. But once again, be the same front row we had just about 20 laps ago. Queen and Quapple is a big check up there on the inside from Brenton and Queen. Remember, we saw kind of the same thing back at Florence there, as Queen leads the field, a check up there on the inside, but he will have the race lead and nearly clear of Carson Quapple off of turn number 4, and indeed he is.
Quapple is going to fall right down in the tire tracks of Brendan Queen as they go to turn number 1. McCarty gets a good drive off of turn number 2, looks to the bottom side of the point leader. Quapple's going to give him a lane there on the inside as we see that white puff of smoke. We've seen that a few times out of that Junior Motorsports number 8, fresh off restarts. But McCarty is not able to get up alongside. Carson's still leaving him room.
Indeed he is, and McCarty will not be denied. Simply put, down into turn number 3, he'll go side by side once again with Carson Quapple. Will he yield, or how hard will he fight McCarty? So tell you what, Quapple doing a masterful job there on the second lane, making that car work, making that job hard. This is what we were talking about with Dominion Raceway, how difficult it can be to pass if you have a good car that is running that outside or middle lane, as that brings Chad McCumbee into the fight here with 102 laps to go.
You can see how fast these cars are rocketing their way around this 4/10 of a mile oval, and you might have to use a little bit of muscle in order to cement a move. But McCarty was able to do so there cleanly. Quapple gets back down, defends the third spot from McCumbee for the moment, as it appears as though Brendan Butterbean Queen is trying to break free. Now that McCarty's in second, we'll see if he can reel in that deficit as Jonathan Finley continues to move up, and a little bit of damage on the nose of Connor Zillish's car.
And that's typical of what we have seen here in Cars Tour competition, is Zilish, a little bit of nose damage that you could see. Obviously not slowing his march through the field as he's able to get by Minnie Tyrell. That'll be for the 8th position. And Connor Zilish, shout out to him, missed Langley a couple of weeks ago, was a winner in the Pro Late Model side at Ace Speedway. But I got to give a nod to Connor Zilish as he defeated one of the Cars Tour owners on the streets of Detroit a couple of weeks ago, started 28th in a Trans Am race and won that race. That is incredible, and even bested Justin Marks. Sorry, Justin, I don't want to get fired.
A lot of these drivers extremely versatile, like that of Connor Zilish, and there's many more who we see throughout the year who try their hands at just about any type of vehicle they can get their hands on. Oh, a little bit of a nudge there. Mike Looney has been struggling in that Nelson Motorsports 12, and Brandon Pierce was not going to get held up anymore. He moves Looney aside and will take the spot away off 2.
Andrew Grady looking to do the same. One of the stronger runs we've seen recently from Andrew Grady, as he's down on the bottom, was talking about how much fun he had this weekend with his family and Scott Hughes out of Walter Reed Hospital. Those two were just a perfect match one another. Apparently, Scout, before, or at least realizing that Andrew Grady was going to be the driver that she was paired with, she looked him up on Google, and what's the first thing that comes up? Martinsville and kicking the race car, and apparently from there it was on. She's all about it. She loves it.
And Grady is having one of his best performances of the night so far, in the 13th position. I should say best performance of the year so far, as Looney continues to struggle just a little bit further up the road. It is Looney in the 12, Grady in the 1, Looney's teammate Landon Huffman in the 22, and Ronnie Bassett Jr. in the 04.
This is further back in 5th as Connor Hall has slipped up just a little bit, but not done battling here, as he's going to easily go by Landon Pimbleton. Does Pimbleton try the crossover? Looks like not the case, but a couple of really fast race cars that I'm noticing. Bobby McCarty, we touched on him earlier. I think Jonathan Finley's another one. And honestly, got to give a nod to Landon Huffman here, who has been racing forward, and Mason Diaz, who was on pit road, already hounding the back of Ronnie Bassett Jr. here to get up into the top 15.
Had a chance to catch up with Mason Diaz's father, Michael, as we see a battle here between Jacob Hefner in the 95 and the 15C, making his Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stock debut, and Logan Clark, a local Virginia driver here at Dominion. And Michael Diaz said of his son Mason, just been a bit of bad luck so far this season, but so far that car appears to have some pace, trying to crack the top 15. Could not get up to him, and alongside of Ronnie Bassett, as Bassett applies the front bumper to Landon Huffman off turn 2.
You can see a lot of damage on some of these cars back in the field, and the point we were touching on earlier that this is a racetrack that historically has lended itself to a lot of issues on restarts, missed shifts. We've seen that a couple of times as Diaz and Huffman get together. Huffman goes sliding up the racetrack, and we are green. No, the Volt battery caution is out for the second time. Diaz and Huffman is Queen, and a new look up front on the front row. It is Bobby McCarty who has joined the 0-3. Back underway with 89 laps to go, and Bobby McCarty may have his first taste of the race lead off at turn number 2. But Queen able to clear him, is now Quapple will go side by side for the second spot.
Quapple trying to keep the fender inside. Again, low tire pressures, more smoke off the 8 car. Nothing to be too concerned about, as Connor Hall is trying to keep himself alongside Chad McCumbee in the battle for 4th. This is the exit of turn 2 with Hall on the inside, and Jonathan Finley is trying to follow through. He's to the inside of Landon Pendleton.
That Alpha Prime Racing machine making a great debut for the team in the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, with a driver who is as capable of getting around this place as any, as he moves up alongside Landon Pendleton, trying to work his way towards the top 5. This is the battle for 6. Tyrell, you can see he almost has his hands full with Connor Zilish, who just has a nose to the outside, and welcome Connor Jones to the top 10 as well.
Connor Jones was standing atop the trailer earlier watching the preliminary events that took place here. Not sure if he was able to learn anything, but welcome back, as Pendleton is really sideways. He may have a problem. That car is getting very loose in each and every end of the racetrack, and he finally nestles down in front of Mike Looney.
Thought it was maybe a flat left rear for a second, but so far looks to be good. But yes, that number 0 car, ill handling for now. Further back in the field, Logan Clark, who mentioned a little bit earlier on social media, of course, tonight is his late model stock debut for the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour, but he intends to run the full season out for RNS Race Cars, as he goes by the Touring 12 member, and Chase Burrows for Top Gun Motorsports on the top side, as he has his hands full with Cameron Bolin, which, by the way, shout out to Cameron Bolin, winner of the summer shootout at Charlotte Motor Speedway a couple of days ago.
This is the first late model stock car race for Cameron Bolin since losing his grandfather. James Cameron Sr. passed away about a week and a half ago. They've got Pawpaw on the driver's side door, above the driver's side door of the race car. And as you mentioned, he had an angel riding with him in Victory Lane at Summer Shootout last Monday. Gave a very emotional interview. Our thoughts remain with the Bolin family in this tough time. But Cameron is looking to have a positive result here, now back behind the wheel of his late model stock, as we go back up to the front of the pack with the leaders.
They go by the lap machine and Tate Fogelman. We mentioned earlier he was on pit road, had some damage sustained, as well as Ronnie Bassett Jr., who is still down in the pit area, so believe that car tonight may be over. Meanwhile, Connor Zilish hanging on over Brandon Pierce, who has slowly but surely started to work his way forward at a much-needed run, I think, for that number 2 car.
I think the worst part for Zilish is that damage right at the center of the splitter, right below the Chevy logo on the front end of his race car. Kicked up perhaps in that restart stack up we've been referencing, and you can see that it's costing him a lot of real estate. And checking up Brandon Pierce, who's got Landon Pendleton down low, trying to gain the spots that he lost after getting trapped up on the high side.
We have just had battles all over this racetrack. Mason Diaz, you can see a little bit further back, able to drive his way by the ill-handling race car of Mike Looney. Jacob Hefner, shocker, started at the back, working his way forward. Same song, different dance for the number 95 of Jacob Hefner. He's done that so many times this season, as I think cars somewhat starting to single file out just a little bit. But don't tell that to Jonathan Findlay, whose march to the front of the field has not ceased, and he may be bringing along Minnie Tyrell with him. That's 6th and 7th between Findlay and Tyrell.
Bobby McCarty starts to close up on Brendan Butterbean Queen for the race lead. They hit the line with 75 laps to go. Queen's got some running room before he has to encounter the tail end of the pack, but McCarty is starting to close up here. A much publicized move in the offseason from Nelson Motorsports to RNS Race Cars for the 3-time Cars Tour late model stock champion. Had a couple of strong runs, some mechanical failures while running up into the top 10. And they have been waiting for the opportunity for things to come together. Could tonight be the night for Bobby McCarty? Let's learn more and check in with James Pike.
Yeah, I talked to Bobby a little bit earlier this afternoon, and the biggest thing he told me was that running here last week really helped them build their notebook. This is a new partnership with RNS Race Cars that came together at the beginning of last year, and he said that the opportunity to run laps here gave them a head start on figuring out where they needed to place replaced the car in terms of their setup before they even got here this week for the Cars Tour race. So he said they unloaded, they felt really, really good, and a lot of practice over the course of the weekend has just been making small tweaks in preparation for the race tonight. So had a lot of speed last week, pretty quick already. Not a huge surprise to see Bobby McCarty near the front.
Not a huge surprise at all, and I think it's just been, the time has been coming for the number 6 of Bobby McCarty to get that job done and find himself up towards the front of the field. Somebody that hasn't gone to victory lane since South Boston in 2021. Hard to imagine for the 3-time reigning Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour late model stock champion. We'll check in here with this battle. Once again, Landon Pimbleton has had his hands full. He has fallen back to 10th now. And the number 24, Mason Diaz, working within about a car length or so, which got to give a nod to Mason Diaz, was our pole sitter here a season ago. Did not qualify, I'm sure, where he would have wanted. They made some adjustments under the first Volt battery caution flag of the night, but now finds himself moving forward. Unlike last year, he sat on the pole, kind of faded towards the end of that race after leading a good portion of it. Opposite effect here for Mason Diaz as he's racing forward and trying to get into the top 10 over Landon Pimbleton.
Unfortunate there for the 87 that they're going by of Tate Fogelman. Remember, he was on the pit lane trying to get some of that body work repaired, and he lost a lap to the leaders, but thus far he remains the lone car 1 lap down as Diaz tries to get a good drive off the corner of the 24. Pimbleton bouncing his way through the transitionary bump in turn number 2. And again, this is the battle to round out the top 10 as the laps continue to click off. Brendan Pierce able to get by the lap traffic just a little bit further on back of Tate Fogelman, and Mason Diaz again sight set on the back of that number 0 car in Landon Pimbleton. And Mason Diaz, I think quite candidly, it has not been the season that he would have wanted for Trad Bryant Racing, so a better opportunity than right now this middle portion of the season to try and turn some of that luck around and try to get back rolling in the right direction. As you can see, 2 cars sliding off of turn number 4. Mason Diaz there coming off of what was a terrible night at Langley. They battled problems all night long, fell 5 laps down, while Landon Pimbleton, the car in front of him in the 0, he elected to not partake in the event at Langley. This team is regrouped and come back. A very strong qualifying run in 5th, but now doing everything possible to fend off Diaz, who has a fender inside. Two are just so even as problems. That is up in turn number 2, and Chase Burrow may have had a tire go down. The Volt battery caution will come out. You can see some damage on the right front fender of Chase Burrow. Roll up into the KRC Power Steering restart zone in 4th. It'll be Brendan Queen, Bobby McCarty, the 0, 3, and 6 respectively, that will launch out of the restart zone and down into turn number 1. Oh, by the way, the iRacing Halfway Lap Leader Award, it will be contested this lap, and it looks like Brendan Queen may be in position to lead that lap. Look at Carson Quapple in the 8 on the bottom, trying to muscle his way up to and alongside and maybe past the 6 of Bobby McCarty as they almost come together there in 1 and 2. Quapple will make the pass. Connor Hall behind him, and the white 77 gets loose. And now Finley's kind of trapped up there on the outside of the 81 of Mini Tyrell. He's got nowhere to go, and Tyrell and Finley so close there off of turn 4. Tyrell concedes and gives him the space as they nearly came to blows here down the front straightaway. Tyrell able to clear, but not quite. Same for Connor Hall as he's now side by side with that number 16 of Chad McCumbee. The 77 will go on by. Good job there by Hall to be able to go from top side to low side. McCumbee is able to be the meat and the sandwich between the 77 of Hall and the 81 of Mini Tyrell. Here's the battle for position. Connor Jones starting to move forward as Finley just cannot get down. He may have an advantage here, and he slices inside of Jones. There's contact. And Jones will chase it all the way up the racetrack, but hangs on to that number 44 car. What a save there for Connor Jones, as Finley pulled the crossover on him, but Jones, a great job collecting that car. He'll lose a handful of spots out of that venture back to the 11th position, but an incredible job hanging on to that race car by the number 44 as Bobby McCarty gets by Carson Quappo in the number 8. He had possession of that second position, did the number 8 of Carson Quappo. Bobby McCarty will fight his way back. McCarty appears to have a very good long-run car. Even though we haven't gone that long since the restart, only about 7 laps or so, it does take him a little bit to start to develop the pace that we saw before we saw the Volt battery caution for the 8 of Chase Burrow. This is a fight that won't go away. We saw this going on lap after lap. That's Landon Pembleton in the 0, the 24 of Mason Diaz, and Connor Jones, who has got to have the bit between his teeth after getting moved aside a few laps ago by Finley. All kind of trapped behind Connor Zilisch, who still has some damage to the front nose of that 57.
See a little bit of smoke there off the front of that 57 car, but Zilisch been so impressive, and somebody that has not experienced that much in these late model stock cars. He has been awfully impressive in everything he has jumped in under the Cars Tour banner, both the late model stocks and the pro late model side. You can see that battle further on back as Brandon Pierce and the two able to get by the 95 of Jacob Hefner, and these two have been tied at the hip relatively all night. The 0 of Pendleton and the 24 of Mason Diaz down to the bottom. Two Commonwealth natives duking it out here at Dominion.
We saw Pembleton get really loose there as he got back to the power. Look at Connor Jones take advantage of Pembleton being up off the bottom of the racetrack. Jones trying to keep the fender inside as they go to turn 1, and he'll get at least one spot back that he lost, and he almost got clipped there as Pembleton tried to cut down in front of the 2 of Pierce.
Just mistimed it, but also lucky that that was all that happened there. That could have been some big contact there with the 44 of Connor Jones, and Brandon Pierce now catching the back end of this battle as a result of that. Try to set his sights on Landon Pembleton. We mentioned the 95 of Jacob Hefner just behind them. And so now we are under 50 laps to go. We talked early in the evening about saving and whether you had to do it, whether it was really that important. But I think at this portion, we get inside 50 laps to go. If there was any saving that any of these drivers are doing around this high grip racetrack, well, that is going to be out the window. And I think that is the case for Minnie Tyrell, who says he loves these types of racetracks where he's able to run wide open, not have to worry about saving as much. He's strong at them, and certainly showing his case here as he's pulled up to the back of the 16 of Chad McCumbee, right-hand side of your screen. It's 12 of Mike Looney and Ryan Millington.
It's the first time we've called Ryan Millington's name there, and that black number 15 to the inside of Mike Looney. It's going to be a battle that is outside the top 10. In fact, that is for 15th spot. Millington came into the night in fact, 6th in the championship standings. This is not the run in which we expected. In fact, he struggled a little bit at the other Virginia racetrack we just visited at Langley Speedway. So Millington hoping to turn the tides a little bit from a momentum sense. So far, it has not been the night they have been hoping for, while the left side of your frame continues to show the fight for the final spot in the top 5 between that of McCumbee and Minnie Tyrell.
Tough luck for Ryan Millington, but yet at the end of the night, will probably find himself up in the 5th position in the standings, courtesy of Caden Honeycutt's early exit from this race. So 26 cars, a record, made it out to Dominion Raceway tonight. There are still 24 out on the racetrack. It is just Ronnie Bassett Jr. and Caden Honeycutt who have called it a night early, as a little touch there from 81 of Minnie Tyrell to the back of Chad McCumbee. Again, this is for the top 5.
Not missing anything up front as Brendan Queen's lead is just under 3/4 of a second as Tyrell tries to get a look down to the inside. Again, a very important weekend for Minnie Tyrell, his race team, and his family. The Manassas, Virginia native with his Burn Rubber for One Another campaign, pairing a child and a family that is going through pediatric cancer treatments, all paired up and represented, and the crowd is on their feet for Minnie Tyrell as he makes the pass for 5th.
There is a suite next to us that is full of family and friends of Minnie Tyrell, and they just erupted watching that live on our screen and on the Jumbotron. So Minnie Tyrell, a special night for him, and very fitting, I think, for that family. Would love to see them come out of here with a top 5, or perhaps even better, as almost contact off of turn number 4. Connor Zilisch, the 57. Mason Diaz in the 24, as Diaz has not ended his march towards the front of the field, and they'll almost touch once again. Nearly a replay of what he and Huffman had into turn 3 there.
I like what Diaz is doing. He's taking a wider entry into the corner, a late apex in the middle, and then trying to get a rocket launch off of the corner and draw even with Zilisch. So far, though, to no avail. This time he stays right in the tire tracks of Zilisch as they come through 3 and 4. And we're starting to see a little bit more slip and a little bit more slide by many of these drivers. Some of them may have pushed a little bit too hard here as there's still 39 to go.
tell you what, with all the little crinkles we've seen on so many of these race cars, it doesn't look like we've been at a very high-banked, high-speed racetrack like Dominion Raceway tonight. Several cars with at least a couple of dings on it, but you know what? That's just good old short-track racing. Is still Mason Diaz. You mentioned the wide arc into the corner, trying to get the run off, but has just not been able to put the throttle down on corner exit to try and get by the 57 of Connor Zilisch, and a couple of car links up the road. Jonathan Finley as well, hanging on to that spot just in front of this battle for the 8th position. Is now he'll give a nose to Connor Zilisch. Contact off the corner as Diaz caught a bit of the apron. He slides off the corner, but he'll have the spot down into turn 1. What does Zilisch do? He gives him a little bit of a shot in the center of the corner.
He gave him a shot, but he didn't get underneath him. Now he's got another chance in 3 and 4. And Zilisch, it appears as though that he is going to live to fight another day in terms of not wanting to battle with Diaz in a physical sense yet again, but they've got the 0 car of Landon Pembleton closing quickly. That car is coming on strong here as this run continues to grow longer.
One of the fastest cars on the racetrack inside the top 10 was indeed the number 0 of Landon Pembleton that last time by. And this is kind of where things have been up in the top 3. You haven't missed a ton, but it has been just a couple of car lengths that have separated Brendan Queen, Bobby McCarty in that 6, and Carson Quapple in the 8. And you just have to wonder, as they start to get into the lap traffic, it's going to be harder and harder to pass. How much does that play into Brendan Queen? I'm sure the spotter going to be very crucial getting through some of the traffic that you see up the road there for that 0-3 of Brendan Queen.
Next up, the number 67 out of Sharon, South Carolina. That's Cameron Boland, who we touched on earlier. He is the next car in danger of going a lap down off the leaders as they come back up onto the main straightaway, and the top 3 are starting to accordion together as the lap traffic nearly gets together. Andrew Grady got a nudge from behind from Boland as the leader dives low on the 67, and here comes Bobby McCarty.
And Queen's going to have to get the job done fast because Bobby McCarty desperate to get back in Edelbrock victory lane, and Carson Quapple eager to build on his series championship points lead to try and get a 2nd consecutive title under his belt. Andrew Grady, he'll pull over for the race leaders, allow all 3 to go by, and will kind of continue that battle with Cameron Boland. They'll give way, surrender those spots, but now it is Chase Burrow, Bryant Barnhill just up the road from your top 3 is now McCarty all over the back bumper of Brendan Queen. 29 laps to go.
Barnhill on the 5 just had a mega slide off the 4th corner. Burrow just leaves enough room for Queen to get a fender inside as they come out of 2, and the top 3 are under a blanket with McCarty looking low.
Does McCarty look 3 wide here as Chase Burrow holding them tight down to the bottom? Bryant Barnhill goes up to the top side. He'll give way to your top 3 runners. Nose to tail between your top 3 with 27 laps to go, and I think McCarty now has the position with the lap traffic that if he is going to make a move, and oh, by the way, Connor Hall is here as well.
3-car race now becomes a 4-car race, and you can watch Connor Hall in that 77 sling that thing down into turn number 3 each and every lap. He's found something, maybe trying to go back-to-back at the Virginia tracks on a late model stock slate. 25 to go, and Queen has been able to survive the pressure, and he's opened up about a 2-car length advantage at the head of the field.
4 of the best late model stock car drivers in the country. The 0-3 of Brendan Butterbean Queen starting to pull away from the 6 of Bobby McCarty, the 8 of Carson Quapple, and the 77 of Connor Hall. Hall sliding off the corner as he has done all night long, but it has not slowed him down. And the march continues for Mason Diaz, car number 24, right-hand side of your screen. Caught Jonathan Finley, and you have to remember that was about 8 car lengths or so that separated those 2. Diaz has run that 45 down and passed him for 7th. What a rebound for Mason Diaz.
A great drive up through the field for Diaz. This is the kind of night that he and that team were certainly hoping for as they get set to head through the summer stretch of the late model stock season. And Diaz has moved up into that 7th spot, as you mentioned, Blake. And ever since getting through the lap traffic, Brendan Queen has been able to open up another 3/4 of a second advantage over this 3-car tussle for 2nd spot. McCarty in the 6, Quapple in the 8, Hall in the 77, all duking it out for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th respectively, while Queen inches closer to the tail end of the field.
Well, once again, Queen will approach the lap traffic in about a lap or two. It'll be in the form of the 42 of Carson Brown, the 22 of Landon Huffman. There is still a battle on here as these three trying to duke it out for the second position. McCarty down to the bottom of turns 1 and 2. Carson Quapple, big slide and nearly into the outside wall off of turn 2 is that of the 8 of Carson Quapple. So dominant this season. Once again, looking to fight for his spot on the podium. Connor Hall, you can see how sideways that car is. Going to lose some time to your second and third place runners.
Right now, Brendan Butterbean Queen hoping this race stays clean and green to the finish. Perhaps. That car has been so strong on the short run, he may rather a restart than having to deal with the lap traffic again, because that's what took away the advantage that he worked so hard to build. McCarty doing a great job here, holding off our current point leader in Carson Quapple, who is looking to have yet another great points night should he remain in a podium position. As Queen has caught the lap traffic ahead of him, it is Quapple almost into the back of the 6, and McCarty as they came out of 2, and they continued to race into turn number 3 for second spot. Carson Brown between them and the leader.
Well, again, with the point system here, this would be a max points night should things continue to flow, and Brendan Queen would hang on here. He's 20 points back of that number 8 of Carson Quapple in the championship standings, and this would be what would yet again be a perfect night. Points-wise is a big slide off of turn 4 from the number 8 of Carson Quapple, finishing in the race lead, leading the most laps.
Mike Looney is off the pace, and the Volt battery caution will fly with 15 laps to go, as Looney has had something come undone on the right front.
As they work their way into the KRC Power Steering restart zone. Once again, 13 laps to go with 2 of your championship leaders launch. Green flag down into turn 1. Once again, another great launch for Carson Quapple on the top side.
I thought he was going to knock the wall down in turn number 2. He got so high, but he is almost clear of the 03 for the lead, but not yet. Here they come to the line. Carson Quapple to the point.
What an amazing restart, and if you're Brendan Queen, you have to imagine maybe you wanted the bottom, but another drive off of turn 2. Queen is close enough to make a move. With 12, now 11 laps to go, as Quapple will try to build a lead, but he slides off the corner.
Right side of your picture, Mason Diaz in the 24, continuing to try to slide his way or work his way up towards the front of the pack. He has a big moment in turn 2. Chad McCumbee looks low in the 16. Butterbean driving it way deep in the corner to try to keep pace with the 8 car with 10 to go.
I think Queen a little bit stronger through 3 and 4, but I'd give turns 1 and 2 over to that number 8 car. 10 laps to go here from Dominion Raceway. They continue to battle up front. Left-hand side of your screen. Right-hand side, it is the 57 of Connor Zillish, 16 of Chad McCumbee, battling just outside the top 5.
What is Brendan Butterbean Queen willing to do? He has dominated this race, led the most laps by a large margin, and has been able to fend off all challengers until what may be the final restart, but he has not allowed Carson Quapple to break free.
That he is not. Quapple, I thought maybe he'd drive away, but Queen not letting that happen. You can see just from up here, the cockpit, Brendan Queen driving his heart out, trying to chase down that 8 for all that he is worth. 7 laps to go, still half a car length separating your top 2 as Quapple, a little bit of a slide there off of turn 2, opens the door for Brendan Queen once again.
That may be the moment that Brendan Queen is looking for. Off of turn number 2, if Carson gets a little bit sideways, it'll be Queen's chance to pounce. Here they come off the second corner. Contact for the race lead.
Applying the pressure is Brendan Queen as they nearly touch down into 2. Quapple up the racetrack. Here comes Brendan Queen sliding to the line. It'll be 5 laps to go. Brendan Queen down on the bottom. Quapple's pinching him. They touch once again in the middle of 1 and 2.
Both of them wiggling up off the corner. Queen still has a fender inside. Now to the driver's door of Carson Quapple as they continue to battle for the race lead and win with McCarty closing.
Bobby McCarty, you cannot forget about him as Brendan Queen up the racetrack again. Gets that 8 car sideways, 4 laps to go. The door is caved in on Carson Quapple as Queen will drive it once again off the corner. Here comes Bobby McCarty, 3 laps to go at Dominion.
Race of the year. More contact there. Here comes Bobby McCarty, 3 wide for the race lead. They touch. More contact. McCarty inside for the race lead in 3.
Minnie Tyrell starting to pounce as the sweets go crazy here with 2 laps to go. Bobby McCarty into the race lead for the first time, looking for his first win in 2 years. Brendan Queen side by side. Now he has the top side with perhaps one lap to go. It'll be off of turn 4. McCarty and Queen a dead heat at the stripe.
1 lap to go. Queen on the outside, McCarty on the bottom. Half a lap to settle it at Dominion.
McCarty on the bottom, Brendan Quinn on the top side. McCarty will slide in. Queen trying to hold him off. A drag race down to the line, and Bobby McCarty will win it by 9/1,000ths of a second. And Bobby McCarty will head to Cars Tour victory lane for the first time in 2 years.